Hey guys, Comic Boom here to continue my top 50 sentimental comics in my collection. This is part 2 of 5. In the first video that I did my rankings from issues 50 down to number 40. And continuing on in this video, this is part 2 of 5. I'll be doing rank number 39 down to 30 of the top 50 sentimental comic books in my collection. These are not based on value. These are based on my personal love for comics. These are the comic books that if they did not exist, I likely would not be collecting comic books, is how I would melodramatically put it. So without further ado, let's hop right to it, because this does take some time, because some of these do have stories behind them. So coming in at number 39 is Jim Starlin's Dreadstar. Guys, I absolutely love, I love myself some Jim Starlin. I got to tell you, because one thing about Jim Starlin is everybody, he's known for his Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet, and he's written so much. He's done so much for the big two in different ways. He's written like for the New Gods for DC, and he's written in terms of the intergalactic universe of the Marvel and DC universe. Jim Starlin is somebody you can't really say enough about him. He's just incredible. But in my view, his greatest work has always been and will always be his work on Dreadstar. And recently he even did a Kickstarter campaign where I think he even collected a bunch of his Dreadstar works, and it's just fantastic. I unfortunately missed out on that, but in any event, Dreadstar is so fantastic. This series, this was one of the first. It's hard to explain to somebody who, as a young collector, in the late 70s, early 80s, when the direct sale market first came on the scene, the direct sale, being in southern Alberta, growing up in a small city of, at that time, 30 million people in southern Alberta, Canada, we never had direct sale comic shops here. And when we finally slowly started to get one, and some outside our area, for me to actually be able to visit and go to a direct sale comic book shop, that was like Disneyland to me. Absolutely incredible. And when I began to collect Dreadstar, when I began to see these types of issues that you couldn't get on a newsstand, which is the only place that I could buy a comic, this was again Disneyland to me. Fantastic to be able to go and buy a direct sale comic. Dreadstar was one of the early ones. Direct sale market, fantastic story. And this was from the Epic line, which was sort of a branch off of Marvel at the time. This was an adult take. There's even a graphic novel that a larger graphic album, oversized album that I had of it. I also have, it's in storage. Fantastic. This is such an epic story. This is, in my view, this puts the whole Thanos story to shame. Infinity Gauntlet. This is so much. This is Jim Starlin at his best, artistically and otherwise. And I gotta tell you, I don't understand. I don't know. Did they overpublish this? Maybe are there like 1 billion copies of Dreadstar? Because I still find this in dollar bins from time to time, and it astonishes me. This should be a $1,500, $2,000 comic book. Honestly, this is, I don't know. I guess here, the speculator market doesn't make sense, but good Lord, this should be a movie. This should be getting spec. But of course, for spec, you need popcorn, you need stuff. Unfortunately, Jim Starlin, nobody seems to care about Dreadstar anymore. I don't know why. I'm old school. I know I'm getting old. Everything I'm telling you is with my bias. That's why this is my top 50 sentimental comics, my collection. This is such a great series. I love it. I wish more people were into it and were showing it some love, and even had a Kickstarter a while back. This branched off. He had, after doing Epic, this was also published again in the Bravura line of comics, Bravura. And again, I've got all those collections. Fantastic. Guys, if you see this in a dollar bin, pick it up. Pick it up. It's fantastic. All right. Coming in at number 38 is The Rocketeer by Dave Stevens. This is, man, I love this series. Dave Stevens is probably my third or maybe fourth favorite artist. My favorite artist is Darwin Cook, followed by Kurt Swan. Third place is, I'm pretty sure it's Dave Stevens here. Wow, incredible. The Rocketeer. I love The Rocketeer. I loved when the movie came out too, in conjunction with the comic book. And when the movie came out, I also bought. I still have the old binder, the dilapidated binder I had with the Rocketeers cards in it. You know, this is back from the 80s. Now look at this. Still got the old Rocketeer cards from the movie. Huh? Look at that. All the cards from the movie. Man, I love this, man. It was such a great movie. And, oh, man. So great. I mean, this is, this is what got me my love, I think, for a particular style of comic, that sort of old school 1940s sort of isk Dave Stevens look, the good girl art, the Betty Boop. And I got my Betty Boop, behind me here, but it's blocked by the top 50, but absolutely gorgeous. I remained a Dave Stevens fan. He's an artist that left us way too soon. I'm still collecting whenever I find old Dave Stevens art, I pick it up. One of the things that the modern day speculator market continues to miss out on is that they have a very modern day bias, and they have a Marvel bias, and that is so much to their detriment. You've no idea what they're missing out on, because as far as I'm concerned, as long as people want to keep missing out and letting Dave Stevens art go unnoticed, that's fine. If I get it cheaper, I'm happy, because I get as much Dave Stevens. I got multiple copies of all kinds of Rocketeer related goodness. I absolutely love it. I love the movie. I watch it when I see it on TV, and I reread these from time to time. And man, what a fantastic comic book series, and a really fun popcorn type movie. So Rocketeer, man, all the way. All right, coming in at number 37 on my list is New Avengers Number One. Yes, guys, Brian Bendis does occasionally know how to write a good comic book. New Avengers Number One. Let me tell you something. When this came out, I'm a DC guy, but one of the things I said for years and years and years, and this is going to sound like a broken record to a lot of the established longtime collectors out there, but I'm sure I'm not alone, guys. For you longtime collectors watching this right now, how many times were you like me when you were a young collector and you said to yourself, why the hell doesn't Marvel have their best superheroes on the team? Because Avengers, I was never into Avengers because I never liked them, quite frankly. All they had was Captain America and Thor, and then they had these characters that were dumb, like Quicksilver, please, Scarlet Witch, come on, nonsense characters. Where was Spider-Man? You know, and especially when Wolverine came on the scene, where was Wolverine? I mean, where were the better characters, man? I mean, you got to have the best of the best. It's not the best of the best if you go with the, I was never into that. New Avengers changed that solely because of the roster. Best scene in here, I'll never forget. There's a scene here that, yes, believe it or not, was scripted by Bendis, where Captain America says to Spider-Man that you are amazing. He gives Spider-Man, Peter Parker, a compliment, and Spider-Man joins the team. Why? Because Spider-Man is the greatest superhero in the Marvel Universe, hands down. Stop with the nonsense. He's a better fighter than Captain America. He's a better tactical fighter than everyone. He's smarter. He's as smart on par with every other. I don't care what anybody says. I can say that. I'm a DC guy, not a Marvel guy. So don't bother me with your Marvel continuity nonsense. I don't care. New Avengers understood, at least partly, what is going to attract new readers like me to the Marvel Universe. You got to put your best on the same team. Of course, right now Marvel's a mess. They're scattering Marvel still doesn't make any, they whenever they have a good thing, leave it to Marvel or DC to screw it up after a year or two. And of course, New Avengers was after about 5 years, it really went awry, and it's a complete mess now, unfortunately, and it remains a mess. Not as bad as their X-Men line, which is a gong show. But in any event, there was a time when this was what comic books were about. It made me feel that this was awesome. This was the best of the best, and it was fun, and it was adventurous, and Bendis did a great job. Can you believe that? David Finch on the art. Man, great stuff. Good series. Now, continuing on, at number 36 on the list is Catwoman. Number one by Darwin Cook. I said my favorite artist of all time is Darwin Cook. I do have this in a CGC signature series. It's outside of reach here, but I do have the CGC 9.8 signed by Darwin Cook. That's the only signature of Darwin Cook that I ever got. Unfortunately, he died far too soon. He died, I think he died 3 or 4 years ago. And oh man, what a loss to the industry. He's the guy, he wrote New Frontier, which is ultimately is also on my list, but it's closer to number one, as you can probably guess. And fantastic. This is based on there's also this here. Now, this is Starlina's Big Score, which this could have been tied, but I consider this a hardcover, but really this is sort of the same genre here. And Starlina's Big Score was story and art by Darwin Cook, colors by Matt Hollingsworth. This is a fantastic series, but this is, as far as I'm concerned, Darwin Cook's run on Catwoman redefined Catwoman in a way that, in my view, should have remained more dominant. I view Darwin Cook's interpretation of Catwoman to be not 100% on par with Frank Miller's Batman, but almost as redefining. Unfortunately, there's been some movement where lately they've really sort of they've kind of moved away from that. That was a mistake. DC needs to move back to Darwin Cook's interpretation of Catwoman. That was the best incarnation of Catwoman. Hands down, by far, nothing even comes remotely close to Darwin Cook's interpretation of Catwoman. This is fantastic. This fostered a further love for the medium that I absolutely continue to love. Wow. Fantastic. All right. Coming in at number 35. Wonder Woman, issue 219. This is a fantastic Wonder Woman comic because she actually does something useful. That's right. She snaps Maxwell Lord's neck. I have a huge Wonder Woman collection going back. I started collecting back in the obviously the 76, 77. And I've got probably Wonder Woman comics going back to before I was born, maybe around 1964, 65 to present. A lot of Wonder Woman. Love Wonder Woman. As a character, her stories generally suck. Now, it's very, very hard to find a good Wonder Woman story. And that might sound surprising coming from a DC guy like me. And I love Linda Carter. I met Linda Carter. She's beautiful. She was at Calgary Comic Expo. Man, picked up this shirt. Fantastic. But the fact of the matter is, Wonder Woman is, generally speaking, a comic book that has been written terribly. As a matter of fact, if you want to identify a writer's worst work, you can usually, if they've written Wonder Woman, you can usually read the Wonder Woman comic they've written and say, that's the worst shit they've ever written. That's usually how it works. I don't know what it is. It's the curse of Wonder Woman. Nobody gets her. Unfortunately, I'll have to come back in another lifetime and become a writer and do it right, because no one has done it right. But the closest anything has ever come to getting it right was Greg Rucka. George Perez? No. George Perez, he was too boring. Classic interpretation of the characters. He abandoned everything that made the character vibrant, alive, etc., etc. Took away the secret identity. Took away Steve Trevor as a love interest. He doesn't get it. He never really got Wonder Woman, and he grounded himself too much in mythology. But that's just me. Now, I'm very opinionated on Wonder Woman, as you can obviously tell. So be it. Wonder Woman snaps Maxwell Lord's neck here. And the reason why I love this, and again, this is my top 50 sentimental. I love this because, this is at number 35. I love this because Wonder Woman it's like she finally had enough with all the BS. And she snaps Maxwell Lord's neck because she gets the job done. She's not like Superman and Batman. Batman, the angsty shit about, I can't kill the Joker because reasons. Superman gets all depressed when he, God forbid, executes the 3 Phantom Zone criminals with kryptonite. And that classic John Byrne story, which might be on my list, hint, hint. And finally, a little bit of lethal force goes a long way. It also defines heroism. It's okay to kill once in a while, especially when you're killing scum. Truly, it is. You see where I'm coming from? If you don't, well, you do now. Well, this is great. because this led to Infinite Crisis. This led to the fracture of the Trinity. Unfortunately, DC, of course, it's another storyline that DC screwed up, but because we never did get an exploration of how the Trinity healed its relationship going into Infinite Crisis. Infinite Crisis, unfortunately, became this disastrous Superboy Prime, limb-ripping fest. Superboy Prime, one of the worst characters Jeff Johns ever created. Garbage character, shit character. But at least leading into Infinite Crisis, they had the right idea of fracturing up the Trinity, led by Wonder Woman, who got the job done, saved the world, and no thanks to Superman, who was useless, and Batman, who was such a little crybaby after finding out that Wonder Woman had snapped Maxwell Lord's neck, that he actually kicked Wonder Woman out of the Batcave. Think about that. Who would kick Wonder Woman out of any place? I wouldn't. If she was in my man cave right now, she would be the one thing allowed. One woman allowed in my man cave would be Wonder Woman, if you know what I mean. Kicking Wonder Woman out of the Batcave. Batman, wake up. Grow a pair. Anyways, great series, great comic book, guys. Great comic book. All right. Continuing on, Punisher, coming in at number 34 is the Punisher series. One in a 4-issue limited series. It's actually a 5-issue limited series. This is I'm Canada, so people talk about Canadian variants. I always get a chuckle when they talk about Canadian variants, because the fact of the matter is that as a Canadian, I never had a choice. It's so funny. At the time I was Canadian, I went and I bought comic books off the newsstand because I had no choice. Where else was I going to buy them? So yeah, I guess I do have a large Canadian variant collection, newsstand. Yes, with the Canadian price tag. It's wonderful. Another example of collecting what you love. And hey, sometimes it's good to be Canadian. What can I say? I love my American friends. A lot of my American friends could give a rat's butt about Canadian variants, and that's all the power to them. The market determines these things. But it's nice to know that this is getting some love. This put Frank Castle on the map. This put vigilantism on the map for me. This was infinitely better than the DC's attempt at it with Vigilante. Coming out of the pages of Teen Titans was Adrian Chase. He was the Vigilant in the Teen Titans series. That was really overall terribly done, and Adrian Chase was a pussy. And at the end of issue Vigilant number 50, he kills himself because he gets all depressed because he accidentally killed a cop. Such a cowardly way to go out, and I hated it. I hated the way they did it. Marvel did Punisher right. Marvel does the idea of vigilante justice right. They don't do it in such a depressing, pathetic way that DC did with Vigilante. And I'm a DC guy. I'm not a Marvel zombie, but I'm going to give Marvel credit where they're due, because Marvel's put out a lot of great comics, and I want to give them credit. This was a fantastic series, man. Frank Castle kicks ass. What can you say? All right. Continuing on, and coming in at number 33 is Brave and the Bold, number 33. This involves Wonder Woman, Zatanna, and Batgirl. This was a story written by J. Michael Straczynski, art by Cliff Chiang. Now, back in the days, post Killing Joke, when Batgirl became Oracle, this was a story that was written it was written in cover date of June 2010. What makes this such a heartfelt story is that this takes place where in the past where Wonder Woman and Zatanna, they are aware that what the future holds for Barbara Gordon. They know that in the future she's going to be crippled. And this basically is them just taking Barbara Gordon out on a night of the town and they go dancing, because they know that at some point she's going to lose her legs, but they can't tell her that. She's going to become a paraplegic. And it was just a heartfelt, touching story. And it's so underrated. And now that, of course, comics being comics, now Oracle, she became Batgirl again, and then now she's Oracle again, and they can't make up their minds. And then you throw in the politics of it and the divisiveness and people bitching and whining and complaining because they want in a world of superheroes, it doesn't make sense that Oracle can't walk, and so they made her Batgirl again, even though they already had a better one in Cassandra Cain, the greatest Batgirl who's ever existed and lived. Cassandra Cain, greatest character in the DC universe, Cassandra Cain. I've said it again and again. I'll keep saying it. In any event, this was a really good comic book. Wonder Woman, Zatanna, and Batgirl. Brave and the Bold, issue 33, cover date June 2010. Guys, great comic. All right, coming in issue number 32, at ranking number 32. Star Wars Legacy. Star Wars Legacy. Sorry about the reflection. This is the half issue. I got the whole Legacy series. Dark Horse put Star Wars on the map after, if you want a whole slew of really shitty Star Wars stories, just read the original Marvel run. Wow. Garbage. Terrible. Terrible. But I got a lot of them too, thanks to my brother. Because I got to tell you something. Growing up, I was 7 years older than my brother. So I'm like 14, 15 years old. My brother is like, because he's younger, he looks up to me. He sees me collecting comics. My brother starts collecting Marvel Star Wars comics. And I remember trying to get into my brother's Star Wars collection. I couldn't. I just thought stories were I thought they were ridiculous. I didn't enjoy them. To this day, I think that they're really not very well written. Much to my surprise, now years later, my brother, as we get older, my brother gives me his collection. So I have my brother's Star Wars collection. And incidentally, I got a Star Wars number 50 Marvel. Has 2 covers on it. Beautiful cover. 2 of them. A double cover for Star Wars number 50. I should probably send that in to get CGC graded. Anyways, that's another story. Still not particularly well written. But wow, Dark Horse did such a better job with the expanded universe. And Star Wars Legacy is hands down the best Star Wars story I have ever read in terms of Caden Skywalker, the adventures of Caden Skywalker, the son of Luke Skywalker. This should have been the sequel instead of the garbage crap we got with Rey and that stupid attempt at whatever the hell the sequels were. What a horrible, horrible attempt. Did I enjoy the Star Wars sequels? Of course I did. I enjoy any Star Wars movie. It's popcorn nonsense. But boy, was it garbage. Star Wars Legacy, fantastic, and I'm so happy to see this. For once, something I actually love is actually eating up the spec market, which is great. Love Star Wars, guys. Check out Star Wars Legacy. The true legacy of Luke Skywalker. Read Star Wars Legacy. Fantastic series. I got all the trades as well. Fantastic. All right. Coming in at number 31. And I'm going to throw a number of series, is the Green Lantern Blackest Night. Now, I'm going to use Green Lantern issue 43 of Green Lantern, which has, of course, the black hand on the cover. And Prelude to Darkest Night has Hal Jordan showing some greed. And then, of course, issue 39. Oh, man. The great thing about Blackest Night, what Jeff Johns did with the Green Lantern Corps with Blackest Night, expanding the emotional spectrum, and just the idea that there could be a black ring, and that it could basically eat and basically feed off the death of everyone and resurrect the dead. I even got all the rings. So I remember getting all these rings, and of course I remember the hardest one for me to find. It was hard for me to get the black ring. Of course, I got the green ring, and then there's the white ring was hard to come by. But anyways, finally on my through my comic book rep, I ended up with all of these rings, and I got to tell you, sorry about that. Lots of rings, guys. I don't know about you, but are these rings hard to come by? Because a lot of people are always asking me, how did they come by this? But you haven't lived until you've worn all the rings of the emotional spectrum, including that of death itself. Huh? This is fantastic. But guys, this is what, again, Jeff Johns, Blackest Night. This was everything I love about comic books. Everything I love about comic books. Coming in at number 31. Fantastic. You have to, I've got the hardcovers of all this series. Absolutely fantastic. This was Jeff Johns at his finest. It became a little bit bloated after that. And of course, they've always tried to duplicate the success of Blackest Night. And I don't think they've managed to pull it off. But man, what a great series. And hey, good stuff, right? Okay. So continuing on here. I got to take all these off. Good grief. So let me just put these down. I am at number 30. The last one in part 2 here at number 30. Should I leave these rings on? Maybe I'll leave some of these on. Number 30 is Fallen Angel by Peter David, art by Lopez, colors by Blanco. Welcome to Belle Noire, where dreams come to life. Now, the great Fallen Angel's got an interesting history. This would actually move to IDW after it would have a DC comic book run. And this is based on plans that Peter David originally had, similar plans narratively for Supergirl. He has a fantastic Supergirl run that I love. I got all his Peter David Supergirl run. It's fantastic, man. It's so great with the art by early art by Gary. I think it was Gary, not Gary Frank. Oh my God. Yeah, no, Gary Frank. Gary Frank did some early issues of. I'm pretty sure it's Gary Frank. In any event, Peter David's early Supergirl run is fantastic. This is his version of Supergirl, really, if he could, but called Fallen Angel. And this would, when he would complete his DC run, he continued the story of Fallen Angel into IDW. And what a fantastic run. Deep, introspective, dealing with themes of loss, redemption, pain, suffering, faith. Oh my God, it's so fantastic. This is, I wish that DC would have allowed him to, given this sort of story arc or hero's journey for Supergirl. It would have been very hard because it's so different. You can tell why the DC they gave him his own series, because they didn't like the concept for Supergirl, but the story concept is so fantastic that they gave him his own series. And ultimately, Peter David took it with him to IDW. So I think it's one of those rare situations where Peter David actually kept the rights to it, even though it was published under the DC banner, which I think is kind of interesting there. So I don't really know what the full story is there, but wow, what a fantastic series. But guys, hey, that's it. That's it for part 2 of 5. And part 3 is going to be coming up here relatively quickly. Going to be, this is issues 39 to 30. I'll be doing my rankings of 29 through 20 on part 3. And guys, until next time, please check out everyone's top 50 comic book list. My top 50 sentimental. I got part 1 and this is part 2, and I'll have part 3, 4, and 5 coming out. Guys, thank you for watching. Follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. And until next time, guys, Comic Boom. I gotta find my place here. I was gonna go Comic Boom out in a very dramatic fashion, but now somewhere along the way, I have. Let me see here. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to I'm wondering what happened to all my scenes. Well, that's interesting. Let me see here. Okay. Okay. There we go. There we go. How about a horn? Can we get an applause? There we go. Okay, I don't know what happened here. But, well, much as I hate to do it, I wanted to go out with a bang with some music, but we're not going to do that. I'm just going to go out like this and say, guys, I'll catch you later, and I'll figure out I can't find my outro. So I'll just say bye, and I'll see you in a bit.